Your baby is in the high chair, body leaning forward, arm shaking toward the counter, making one urgent sound over and over. Da, 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 you offer water. Wrong. A spoon. Wrong. You pick them up, and suddenly the whole tiny body erupts, as if this is not a small misunderstanding but a complete communication collapse. From the outside, it can look dramatic, maybe even a little absurd. A baby with a half-formed word and a very strong opinion. But that moment is not random. It is not meaningless noise attached to big feelings. It is one of the earliest signs that a human mind is trying to push thought through an unfinished language system. And during the first 3 years of life, that struggle changes almost everything. Most of us were taught to think language starts when words become clear. Before that, the baby is just listening, just absorbing. Just making cute sounds that don't mean very much yet. That assumption makes sense. If they can't really talk, it's easy to believe language hasn't really begun. But the truth is more interesting than that. By the time you hear a first word, the brain has already been working on language for months, maybe longer. The first word is not the start of the story. It is the moment the hidden story finally becomes audible. Because the language window from 0 to 3 is not just about learning labels. It is when the brain is deciding which sounds matter, how voices work, whether communication changes the world, and whether another person can be counted on to respond. In other words, language is never just language. It is sound, prediction, emotion, memory, timing, trust, and connection, all braided together. Even before birth, babies are already hearing the rhythm of voices through the body. Not crisp sentences, not vocabulary, but pattern, melody, cadence. That's why newborns often recognize and prefer familiar voices, especially the mother's voice, and the general rhythm of the language they were hearing in the womb. They do not know what the words mean, but their brains are already learning what human communication feels like. Then the process gets even more astonishing. Developmental scientist Patricia Kuhl famously described young babies as citizens of the world. Early on, they can detect a wide range of speech sounds from many different languages, including distinctions adults often miss if those sounds don't exist in their native language. That means a very young baby is, in some ways, I'm more open to the sound possibilities of human language than you are, and then slowly the brain begins to specialize. Around the end of the first year, it starts strengthening the sound patterns it hears again and again, and letting less used distinctions fade into the background. Not because the brain is losing ability in some tragic sense, but because it is committing. It is building efficiency. It is saying, these are the sounds of my world. These are the patterns I should wire for. That is why the same baby who once seemed to hear everything starts becoming tuned to the language or languages around them. This is the language window, not an expiration date, not a countdown clock, but a period of extraordinary openness. When the system is especially ready to be shaped by what it hears every day. And if your baby seems weirdly fascinated by your mouth when you talk, that is not distraction. That is research. Babies often shift attention toward the mouth because they are trying to connect what they hear with what they see. Sound and movement, voice and lips. The brain is lining up the pieces. If they want the same song again and again, or the same book, or the same page with the dog on it, adults hear repetition and think, boredom must be impossible. But repetition is not boring to a baby brain. It is clarifying. It strips away noise. It lets patterns emerge. Where does this sound begin? Where does it end? What comes next? What does this mouth shape predict? Why does this tone mean delight and that tone mean concern? Even that sing-song voice adults naturally slip into around babies, sometimes called infant-directed speech or parentese, isn't silly fluff. It helps highlight the shape and emotional contour of language. It makes speech easier to notice, easier to segment, easier to remember. And here is where it gets deeper. Babies do not learn language best from sound alone. Kuhl's research showed something powerful. Babies learned new speech sounds far better from live human interaction than from video or audio alone. A real person made the difference. A face matters. Timing matters. Eye contact matters. Emotion matters. The baby brain opens wider when language arrives inside relationship. That is why a baby can seem completely mesmerized when you imitate their babble. Pause, eye, and wait for them to answer back. To an adult, it might look like play. To the brain, it is architecture. Harvard's Center on the Developing Child uses the phrase serve and return for this kind of back and forth. The baby makes a sound, a face, a gesture. You respond. They respond to your response. And with each exchange, the brain is practicing one of the central rules of being human. Signals can travel between minds. That is not a small lesson. It is one of the foundations of language, attachment, and emotional regulation all at once, which is why one of the most revealing experiments in early development is so hard to watch. In Edward Tronick's still face experiments, a caregiver suddenly stops responding to the baby and holds a blank, still expression. At first, the baby tries harder, more sound, more movement, more effort. And when the connection still doesn't return, distress rises fast. Why? Because even before words, babies expect communication to be alive. They expect their signals to matter. The pain in that moment is not just in being ignored. It is something more primitive. The loop broke. The world stopped answering. This is one reason shallow parenting advice often misses the point. It talks about words as if words are separate from the relationship carrying them. But for a baby, they aren't separate. The voice that names the spoon is often the same voice that calms fear. The person who labels the dog is also the person who helps the nervous system settle after a loud noise. Language arrives wrapped in safety, intention, in warmth, dock and expectation. A baby is not only learning what words refer to, a baby is learning what communication feels like. And then something else appears that changes everything again. Pointing, or holding up a cracker, or staring at the ceiling fan, then snapping back to your face to make sure you saw it too. Researcher Michael Tomasello has shown how central joint attention is to language learning. When a baby points and then checks your eyes, they are not just demanding an object. They are doing something much more human than that. They are trying to share a mental world. See what I see. Notice what I noticed. Join me here. That is a profound leap. Language does not begin with perfect pronunciation. It begins with shared attention. With the discovery that another mind can line up with yours and look at the same thing, feel the same interest, and attach the same sound to it. So when your baby points wildly at a truck or a bird or the moon and seems almost offended if you don't look fast enough, that urgency is meaningful. They are not merely requesting. They are recruiting your mind. And once that inner world starts forming more clearly, frustration often explodes. This is the part many adults misread. The toddler who collapses because you handed them the blue cup instead of the yellow one. The child who says one impossible little word over and over and gets angrier every time you guess wrong. The baby who lights up with relief when you finally understand. We tend to call this overreaction, but often it is evidence of something remarkable. Their mind is becoming more precise than their mouth. That meltdown may be one of the earliest signs that a child has a very specific intention and not yet enough language to deliver it cleanly. They are not simply being difficult. They are experiencing one of the most intense bottlenecks in human development, having more inside than they can get out. That is the reframe. The drama is not always a sign of chaos. Sometimes it is a sign of emerging clarity. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky argued that language first exists between people and later becomes part of the child's inner speech. In plain English, the words children eventually use to guide themselves begin as words borrowed from someone else. First you say, "You're frustrated." Later they say, "I'm frustrated." First you say, "That was loud." Later they think, "That scared me." First you help them name experience from the outside. Eventually they carry that structure inside and start using language to organize thought, memory, and emotion for themselves. So when we say 0 to 3 changes everything, and this is part of what we mean, these are the years when the brain is building and trimming connections at extraordinary speed. Auditory processing, social timing, emotional regulation, motor planning, attention, memory. They are all developing in conversation with one another. Language is not sitting in one neat little box. It is helping coordinate the system. This is also why the richest language environment is usually not the most impressive looking one. It is not the flashiest toy, not the app, not the perfectly curated shelf of educational materials. It is your face during the diaper change, your voice in the car, the pause after they babble, the way you answer their nonsense sound like it means something, the way you name what they're staring at, the way you come back when they call. And if your home holds more than one language, that does not confuse the baby brain the way people sometimes fear. It gives the brain more patterns to work with, as long as those languages live inside real, meaningful human interaction. What matters most is not performance. It is connection with pattern, human language, carried by human presence. Now, none of this means every child develops on the same timetable. They don't. Variation is normal. Some children speak early, some later. Some are physically bold before they are verbally expressive. And 0 to 3 is a sensitive period, not a doomsday clock. Learning does not end at 3. Brains do not shut down. People grow, adapt, and catch up in many ways. But there are moments worth paying attention to. If a baby rarely reacts to sound, shows very limited babbling as the first year moves forward, doesn't seem interested in back-and-forth interaction, uses few gestures like pointing or showing, or loses skills they previously had, that matters. Not as a reason for panic, but as a reason to notice. Hearing issues, communication delays, and developmental differences are often easier to support when seen early. The stakes here are not about blame. They are about visibility, because the biggest thing most of us miss is not danger, its significance. We underestimate what is happening in ordinary moments, the repeated syllable in the crib, the demand for the same bedtime story, the baby staring at your lips, the toddler furious that you didn't understand, the enormous relief on their face when you finally do. Those are not side effects of early childhood. That is the work. A child is learning that sounds can carry intention, that another person can receive it, that feelings can be named, that attention can be shared, that the world does not end at the edge of their own body, that what is inside them can somehow cross the gap and land in someone else. And that may be one of the most important discoveries a human being ever makes. So the next time your baby babbles at you like it's urgent or melts down because one unfinished word didn't land, remember what you're really watching, not randomness, not just noise, not nothing yet. You are watching a brain build a bridge. If you've had one of those moments where a sound, a gesture, or a so-called nonsense reaction suddenly revealed that your child understood far more than you realized, tell me about it in the comments. And if you want more psychology beneath ordinary parenting moments, subscribe. This channel is for seeing the hidden human meaning in the moments most people overlook.